listening to Pop This, the podcast where three women talk about pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen, Andrea Gin, and Andrea Warner.
So, has there ever been something in your life where you've really, really liked it for a long time, like obsessively loved it, let's call it, and then all of a sudden it loses its charm? Has that ever happened to you? I could give an actual example. It frequently?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, let's hear your example.
Yeah, I want to hear your example, Lisa.
Usually I am, theater popcorn is the ultimate for me. And I went to the movie theater the other day and I ordered my large bag with butter, which I always get. And after I felt sick, and this is like the first time ever I felt really sick from my theater popcorn. And I'm like, is it over? Is that it now?
Well, had you not had it for a long time? Like, when was the last time you had it?
A month or two ago.
Because maybe, like, you just don't have the tolerance for that much salt and butter anymore. Or
I
something,
know.
You haven't been going on a regular basis.
I'm going to, suggest something wild. Maybe it's not that you can't do it anymore. Maybe it's just that you can't do that volume.
Yes, there was that thought.
Maybe,
perhaps
maybe it's the
large was just a little bit large.
Yeah.
I'm used to getting large, and then people will say, well, we can share. And I'm like,
Yeah, I don't like that either. I would prefer just getting two smalls versus the large to share.
Yeah, I'm not a sharer of the popcorn because the butter is layered. And what if they get to the good layer? And I miss out on that one.
Exactly.
And you also want to make sure that whoever you're sharing with has the same level of clean hands as you.
Hygiene.
But isn't a finger licker of the butter that they use napkins a normal person?
Oh, I always use napkins. I take too many. Probably.
Yeah, me too.
But also if I go to somewhere like the Cinematheque, which has it has a self-serve tray of toppings.
Yeah.
I really like my popcorn in a specific way, which is why I prefer just having my own. Well, they have that nutritional yeast that
everyone loves that.
Have you ever tried that? Yeah. And so I just like dumping that stuff on my popcorn. And I know that's not I know it would be a bit much for most people probably. So it's probably I'm better off having my own.
Yeah, well, there's that. But I guess what I'm going to go to the movies tomorrow, the picture shows. And
wow, you're becoming a regular picture show goer.
The cinema, if you will. Mm-hmm. And perhaps I'll just order a small.
I think it can't hurt to keep something you love in your life, but just at a reduced capacity.
Yeah, because that's honestly one of the real reasons I don't mind going to the movie theater. I like the discipline required to go to a movie now.
Yeah, you have to be there at a certain time.
Yeah.
You have to get tickets.
You can't pause it. You can't talk. Yeah. You can't scroll your phone.
Think about your seat. Yeah.
It's really quite a
challenge.
System. It is. It takes a lot. It has my habits now are completely off the rails.
You're feral, but the movie theater requires you to be quote unquote civilized.
Well, exactly. Yeah. You have to dress in street
outside
clothes.
Clothing.
Yeah.
Outside clothes.
Yeah. You can't speak out when you're that something's crazy. You can't go, what the? You have to keep it to yourself or nudge your partner or I go alone to a lot of movies. I really like that. But even that is if I get bored, I would ordinarily just pull my phone out, but I didn't get bored at all. But it's just that I can't. You can't do that. It's knowing I can't makes me want to.
Yeah, don't do that.
No.
I've been in movies where people have done that though.
No.
Just pulled out their phones. Yeah.
Oh, I've been there. Yeah. Carlos always asks them to put their phone away. He has no fear of being knifed by a stranger in a movie theater. If someone is disrupting his enjoyment with a bright screen, he will not have it.
It seems to me that it doesn't happen at the VIF theater or cinema, like the
No,
indie
like those.
theaters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens at like the big
The Cineplexes.
Cineplexes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I only like to go to the Cineplexes now when they have their like reclining seats, those big, giant, comfy. I'll give theater go at that because I do not have a celebrity screening room. I just have a couch and a television set.
Has anyone ever tried the VIP?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I love the VIP.
I've never tried
that's
it.
where
Is
the
it
feet
worth
go
it?
up.
Oh,
Like,
it's
that's
well
where the
worth
feet.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the feet go up. Like even if you don't want to be hand delivered wine in the like at the beginning of the screening, it is great because like honestly the seats are just that good.
So what is VIP about it?
the seats.
Well, the seats
and also
for
they
one.
come to your. You don't have to go to the concession. They come.
Yeah,
to
they'll
your
bring you stuff. You
seat,
can order it.
and they bring your food to you, and you can have.
There's
like,
no
they have a
children
menu.
allowed.
They have
It's
an
all
actual
19
menu.
plus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and alcohol.
Oh, so like dinner. You can have dinner.
Yeah, if you
while
want.
watching a movie.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you can get a
I
beer
mean,
right to your seat.
I wouldn't eat dinner there. Like it's not good food, but you know, you can still get hand delivered. You can get hand delivered 2 glasses of wine and have 2 wines, 2 cups. It's great.
Yeah, nachos.
You could
If you
even
wanted.
just order the bottle and pretend you're sharing with people.
Yeah,
And then keep it.
yeah.
I've always been too cheap to try VIP, but you're making it sound good.
It's the only way
Yeah.
to me.
I
Really.
I prefer it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's I'm spoiled that way. If it's gonna take away some of my liberties, I need a real reason to do it.
I also think that if you like you can use scene points for a lot of that stuff when it's like the VIP theater and it's worth it, you know.
You have to
Yeah,
try
good
it
to
and
know.
report back, okay?
Yeah, you like need to do it at some point
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. Live a little.
Yeah. And just give myself permission to live a little.
Yeah,
You're right.
just
Honestly,
live
you
out
won't
loud.
regret it. Like you really won't regret it.
Yeah, there
It's
can't be
like,
you can't report back going, well, that was no fun to sit in an ultra comfy seat.
yeah. Where
And eat like chicken fingers.
Yeah.
where you put your legs up. Like but here's the thing. I will like give you some inside baseball information. If you want the experience of that reclining seat with your feet up, but you don't want to pay the like VIP prices and you don't care about getting like liquor served to you, you can go to the Landmark in New Westminster. And that you get that's like their regular seats.
Oh, okay.
Like all the seats there have like the feet up.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I recently found out that like the Dunbar Theater, because I live sort of close by to it, they allow you to order food and have it like delivered to the theater
Nice.
so you can eat it.
That's great.
Like they allow DoorDash and stuff.
Also, their
Well, how
popcorn's
are you
amazing.
eat it? That sounds like it would be. Do they have little tables?
No.
Oh,
Just
okay.
in your lap.
It's just you just eat it in your lap.
Oh, okay.
But also their popcorn's amazing.
Yeah.
You can order it and take it out. You don't have to go into the theater, right? You could just buy the pop. See,
Yeah.
look at me. Look at me with my problem again. Okay, that's not something I need to know or do.
That's the thing. You're feeding a habit that you don't even know you want.
I know. I know. I'm gonna. I don't know. I'll be there tomorrow. I'll be going to see another movie tomorrow. So we'll see. I will report back on how the popcorn felt. Maybe it was just a off day for me.
Could have been a fluke.
Could have been a fluke.
But so what's going to happen? Are you going to order the small or the large?
Look, I don't want a Goldilocks here, but there's also a medium option.
Is there though?
And often there's a kids option, which I say don't like shake your head at, because sometimes with the kids option, it's the exact right amount of popcorn and a tiny drink and a fun little chocolate.
I often get the container that has the picture on it too, like the Star Wars or like the Chewbacca or
But like,
something.
what do you do with those?
What
I
do you-
don't know. I don't
You have such a
know.
minimalist house. Like, where do you even
Yeah,
put that
what happens
stuff?
to
I
those
have my
things?
work desk.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah.
See.
You can come by and see them.
Every one of those containers becomes a mini composter.
Yeah. That's too much popcorn, I say,
Yeah,
personally.
it is. Yeah.
For me. I suppose with that particular bucket, you must share. So I will keep my large.
Yeah. I like a small, and I do typically share with Carlos, but I like it alone otherwise.
You trust his hygiene.
I mean, I know where most of his hands have been.
Most of his hands? How many hands does he have? Is he a handsy guy that it feels like more than two?
We use a lot of hand sanitizer, so
Yeah, okay.
I trust him.
You're safe then.
Yeah.
You know what?
That's a nice flavor on popcorn.
Yeah.
Isn't it delicious?
Here's the thing about our choice of movies for this episode.
Yeah.
There's no segue.
Well, there is, because I was going to prompt you and say, I mean, we're going to stumble over it now, which is fine, but I like it because you told us a secret before this, which is sometimes there are movies you don't feel comfortable eating popcorn in.
Yeah. This is the one.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I also saw this in a theater, and I was glad that my popcorn stomach was full by about the 10th minute, because I was like, well, I no longer have an appetite.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't do this.
Yeah. There's a chance that perhaps maybe there are popcorn movies. I think they even call them that, don't they?
Oh, they do. Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
This is not a popcorn movie.
This is not a popcorn movie.
They need a softer food option for these kinds of movies too, like a donut movie.
Yeah, or just like a movie that takes away your nausea while you're eating it somehow. I don't know. I guess just they really should sell ginger ales.
Do they not have ginger ale as an option?
Not usually.
But for me, it's more like I also don't want to disturb really.
Well, that's what
quiet
I'm
movies.
thinking.
Fair
Yeah.
Well, with that setup, and maybe will this be the only time we laugh this whole episode? Perhaps. Unless you guys both laugh at me while I openly weep throughout the whole recording. I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
And you're listening to Pop This. And I don't know, buckle in, folks. I think we all are. We're talking about women talking.
Women talking about women talking.
That's what this is. It is a movie that is just comes with all kinds of trigger warnings. It's fantastic. But just be kind to yourselves and think about whether you are in a position at this moment to listen to everyone talk about a film that deals explicitly and primarily and entirely with rampant sexual violence towards a group of women. That's your soft landing, and it's just gonna but I mean, really truly fantastic movie, and I know that we'll talk about it with lots of compassion and empathy and stuff, but just to prepare people who've never read the book or watched the movie, I think it's good to give a bit of a heads up.
Yeah. I'd like to think that most people going into this movie have taken some time to read up, find out what it is they're seeing, and not go in cold. I would recommend definitely
Can you imagine
being prepared.
going in fully cold?
No. Well,
I mean, I think people, you're right, Lisa, people will have that are seeing it know about it because it hasn't done very well at the box office. And there are, a lot of reasons for it because it opened in December and, there was storms happening across North America and, prestige film wasn't doing very well last year. And I don't know. It just, I think that the people who have sought out to see this movie in theaters are, have heard of it before and are interested.
Yeah.
And it has been critically acclaimed since its world premiere. It has had massive critical buzz, and then it didn't get as nominated, I think, as people maybe thought it might for the Oscars. But it is sort of it's in a very good position, at least I think, to win one of its two nominations.
I think Best Picture
Yeah.
is pretty ambitious. I don't know. I mean, I suppose you hope for it, but I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's a lock maybe for best adapted screenplay because the writing is fantastic.
Yeah.
But it lost in the Golden Globes to the Banshees of Inisherin, I think.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that more people who vote in the Golden Globes took to the Banshees of Inisherin than took to Women Talking, given just like the history of who comprises the voters in the Golden Globes. Like, I'm not super surprised by that. Which isn't to say the Banshees of Inisherin is not a great script. It is. They're extremely different films, I think. I'm going to read the background just for fun. Women Talking is a 2022 American drama film written and directed by Sarah Polley. It is based on the 2018 novel of the same name by Marion Taves and inspired by real-life events that occurred at the Manitoban Colony, a remote and isolated Mennonite community in Bolivia. The film stars Rooney Mara, Claire Foy, Jessie Buckley, Judith Ivey, Ben Whishaw, and Frances McDormand, who is also a producer on the film. Women Talking had its world premiere at the 49th Telluride Film Festival on September 2nd, 2022. It's received nominations for Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay at this year's Academy Awards. That's from Wikipedia. Lisa, would you like to read the synopsis?
Sure. Yeah. All right. Inspired by heartbreakingly real events in a Bolivian Mennonite colony around 2010, Women Talking follows the hayloft conversation of Mennonite women as they come to grips with having been systemically drugged and sexually assaulted by men of their colony over a period of years. Faced with the reality that they and their children are not safe in a society that would protect their attackers by gaslighting the victims into believing they were punished by Satan, the women come to realize that their only options are to either stay and fight for their rights or leave into the unknown outside world. And that's from Lee Monson at AV Club.
So have you guys read the book? I have it on my shelf, but I haven't actually read it yet.
I have not, no.
No, I haven't either. And I hadn't heard about the original story upon which the book was based. I'd never heard of that at all happening. And it was only in 2010.
Yeah. So Miriam Taves acted in a film that I reviewed a really long time ago that I would have to look up now to fully recall it. But I believe that it has allusions to this. This. It's set in a Mennonite colony, and I'd have to look it up. It just came to me actually while we were talking about this. And I interviewed her for the film at the time. And so I feel like maybe there's like a piece of the stuff that inspired the film that then also like was happening with the story that then maybe laid the foundation for the book. But she's actually a really great actor as well. Like I know she doesn't do a ton of acting. I know
I didn't know that at all either.
Yeah, I know she's like known as a writer, obviously. But she's a great actor. I know. What a wild time, right?
Yeah, I'll have to look up her movies.
Yeah, I don't know if she's done that. I can't remember if she's done more than one or if that was like her, like, because it was a sizable role. Like it wasn't small. Silent Light.
Okay.
It was in 2007 and it was filmed in a Mennonite colony in northern Mexico. Anyway, it's very interesting. It's very good. Miriam Taves does a lot of stuff around like Mennonite colonies and like had some experience growing up in I believe those communities and just like has I think done like this felt like this felt a bit like a feminist fantasy of how this conversation might happen, but it also felt extremely cathartic and extremely kind of inspiring to see a room full of women, everyone, even if they're like in disagreement about how they should stay or go, no one is like disbelieving of what has been happening to them. they all know what's been happening to them. And that actually weirdly felt like extremely powerful. Like there wasn't a single woman in the room being like, really? But like, do we know what happened? Like they all know that this violence has been perpetrated upon them, even if they want to deny some of the violence. Like there's nowhere left to hide. And that weirdly felt powerful to see them like just completely disavow this gaslighting that has been happening.
One of the reviews I was reading, I think it was Roger Ebert, it was the bringing up the issue around the fact that the book is actually the writings of the note taker.
Oh, yeah.
Because
So
the
it's
women
like
are illiterate.
Like it's all filtered through the male gaze.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they were wondering, because they hadn't read the book either, that what was lost through that? Did Sarah Polley, in adapting it, taking it from that perspective and putting it into a whole other different light?
Yeah, that's really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've heard that the book is absolutely devastating. So it sounds as if, like, again, having not read it, it's hard to say, but it sounds as if, like, in the way that I have talked about it with my friends who've read the book, who actually are not that interested in seeing the movie because the book devastated them so much. They're just like, no, I can't do it. Like, I can't go through it again. And so I think that's, I mean, I want to read the book now because I've already been quite thoroughly devastated by the film, but it really did feel like, if you can separate the fact that this is happening as a result of horrific, rampant sexual violence, this sort of other piece of it, which is women coming together in sort of like feminist utopia to a certain, like, obviously in a very specific way, but then thinking about the way Sarah Polley talks about what it was like filming and how all of the women came together in this sort of collective care unit of supporting each other, amplifying each other's performances. There wasn't competition. It was because it was primarily all women.
Even on the crew?
Apparently it was just this, like a ton of women together, like, and it becoming this sort of real example of like feminist care ethic and being able to, you know, to just bring out the best from a feminist perspective, you know, and like, that's like, you know, that's the real dream. Like, and particularly I can only imagine in like filming these scenes where there's so much painful character motivation and a lot of painful dialogue, you know, like, I was really fascinated to think about like how this sort of very closed religious community that is obviously very patriarchal, and sexist, if women are not allowed to learn to read, is still so, like, it's still so much about forgiveness. Like, I don't know, my mind was like going a million directions to like really think about what forgiveness means in this light.
Yeah, and a lot of people have noted that some of the choices Sarah Polley made in adapting it is like she didn't show the violence that happened to these women. Like there was no like graphic details, and we didn't have to sit through it as an audience. And also, she took out a lot of like the more dramatic scenes from the book. Like apparently, there's parts where, you know, some men crash the meeting, and there's another part where two boys threaten to expose their plan, and you know, those things aren't. And I also like noted at the end of the movie, what I really appreciated is that they were just kind of allowed to make their decision, and it happens, and we didn't have to sort of be forced to watch, you know, like what happened to them afterwards. Like if, you know, they were chased or followed, or like, you know, if what kind of struggles they had after. And I just kind of really appreciated those choices. Like this movie just allowed us to have this, like, to think intellectually about this conversation and not have to worry necessarily, like, not have to see all of the things that we would normally worry about seeing in this kind of story, like violence, like, them being, like the men coming after them after they leave.
I felt, even now that you mentioned that, like the film still felt extremely violent to me. Just in those quick scenes of the girls with the bruises and the blood. And I feel like the way that Sarah Polley decided to tell that story was very much getting us, the audience, to feel how the women felt, because they didn't experience it either. They were drugged.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they experienced the aftermath, and we're experiencing that aftermath with them,
Yeah.
like and I feel like, I don't know, I felt like the last 5 minutes of the film were among the most suspenseful minutes of movie I've ever seen. Like, I was holding my breath the whole time to see if the very bad husband, who had violently assaulted his wife and daughter the night before, would show up, or see if, anybody had gotten hold of the information that they were leaving or anything like that. Like, I was...
Yeah, I mean, that's
waiting.
what I meant.
Like I was...
we're trained as moviegoers to expect that kind of thing to happen.
Yeah.
But it doesn't in this movie.
It's so tense.
Yeah, I also really appreciated the inclusion of how complicated it was having sons.
Yeah.
That really struck me. And, like, at what age do we deem that these are irredeemable people, and I thought that was, and then we have the man taking the minutes, recording this, and he's a good person. He's a very good person. He was excommunicated and, came back. And so we're not without seeing that there is redemption possible.
Yeah, I was like I was nervous because I thought that we were gonna find out that he was complicit in like some of the stuff that was going on, and like I don't know, maybe he was, like that's really, but like Carlos suggested that he thought that the boy had his own experiences with sexual violence amongst like from when he was a kid too, maybe, or like he had experienced some kind of violence.
Some bullying and things for being
and I thought that was like a really good point. And it, like, I really did appreciate the sort of perspective of like, him saying that like these boys of 12 and 13 can do extreme harm, but they can also be pointed into like a different direction, and I mean, just like the constant negotiation and navigation between the women about like what age is too young and what age is too old. And like, like trying to figure out like what to do with your kids. Like, oh my God.
It's almost as if the men knew that about them. They knew, they know that we can rape you. You will become pregnant. And then you know what you'll do? You will care for those children.
Yeah.
And we know that about you.
Yeah. Oh God. I mean, all of it is so awful and so terrible and disgusting. And it didn't fully dawn on me. And maybe this is, you guys are both gonna be like, oh, you really missed a easy plot point here. But I hadn't fully put together why Salome was so upset and why she had attacked that person. Like also like seemingly a young teenage boy, I think, is what the impression was. But that like the assaults were already starting on her like 4-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
And that she had to carry her across, like carry her to town to get her antibiotic. Like, oh my God, my stomach fell out of my body, I think, at that point. But not realizing that fully until like, I think that, sorry, I guess what I'm trying to say is this script is full of like overt discussions where they name things that are important to be named, but there is also an incredible amount of nuance and subtlety to it that I think is a very difficult thing in this kind of movie, you know? Like it's not giving us all the answers because the women are trying to sort out the answers.
Exactly.
And I
thought
really
about
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, Sarah Polley said to Shirley Lee at The Atlantic that she wanted to make a movie about people who's have their minds changed.
Yeah.
Because she felt like so much of the real world, and especially like, you know, on social media, things are so black and white and there's no nuance, and you can't have like a nuanced discussion about these things. And she wanted to make a story that talks about people who are coming at an issue from all different points of view and kind of have a honest discussion about it and are able to change their minds about things.
But I think like
and then come together at the end in agreement.
Yeah, but I think like the important thing there that I really want to like be clear about is that it's never up for debate about what happened to them.
No.
So they all know, like they're all in agreement about that. And I think that's the thing that gets a little murky, where people talk about, oh, everyone has different opinions about like, but the facts in this case are facts that they all know. Like, you know what I mean?
And they all accept that like the men won't face consequences.
Yes. And they so that as a foundational point is a much more interesting place to me to have the discussion that follows, which is, what do we owe to ourselves? What do we owe to our faith? And what do we owe to our children? And to like, they owe nothing to these men. Like the questions about forgiveness are in relation to their faith, not about taking care of these like men who have been so violent and horrible to them for so many years, you know? And I think we just like, oh, so often we just hear about like, what about the men? And I really appreciated a film that like didn't center that as a point of conversation. It's really about just their own safety, their own faith, and their kids. And I thought it was like, it's very beautiful in that way. Yeah.
And it's so fascinating to me that, you know, this feminist discussion is happening amongst a group of women that we, you know, wouldn't necessarily assume identify as feminists.
I was going to say,
from,
it's 2010 and they don't even know that word probably. They've never heard it.
Well, they come from a very traditional community, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so fascinating. And I think it's also interesting that, you know, like it's happening in this what's happening in this traditional community, and this discussion that they're having is very specific to them, but also has themes that are obviously resonating with women around the world. You know what I mean? Like they somehow made the conversation to be extremely specific to these circumstances, but also have like greater feminist themes, you know, that speak to all of us.
Yeah. I was really like, I don't know, I guess because like it's something that I think about a lot right now. And as my sort of own feminism evolves, I hope, and gets more deeply enmeshed with, you know, thinking about deeper issues of justice and equity, and thinking about forgiveness, thinking about accountability, and thinking about sort of, you know, punishment. And
well, in the real story though, the men did go to jail, several of them though, right? In the real story.
I don't know. I haven't.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
They did. There was a trial.
and
some of them went to jail.
Yeah. So there were consequences,
including the man who supplied the
drugs,
the cow tranquilizers.
Cow tranquilizers.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I'm really fascinated by, and I'm personally fascinated, and maybe this isn't necessarily a discussion for here, but like just thinking beyond carceral punishments as well, and thinking about community, because I don't know. It's different, I would assume, in Bolivia, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what their carceral system is like. But I think it raised so many questions that I've been thinking about and talking about with people for so long, and also just thinking about like how women like do go to such extreme efforts to just be safe and be free. Like, I don't know. There were a lot of moments in that movie where I was just like, oh my God, I'm weeping for the 14th time now.
Mm-hmm. You look like you're gonna weep now.
I might.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we talk about the performances?
Oh well, yes, I think we should. Yes.
So I know that
This is like overall the strongest cast that we've seen in a movie in a long time.
Long
sure.
time.
Like
I
across
know,
the board.
I know Rooney Mara is getting a lot of like attention for her role as Ona, and deservedly so. But like, I was really moved by Judith Ivey as Agatha, and just,
Sheila
like,
McCarthy.
Yeah, and just like the work that they, and also the kid, I know there were two kids, but like the kid that had the bigger part, I can't remember her name right now, but anyway, I just thought like, my God, this child is like 13 or 14 years old. She's doing incredible work here, like incredible work.
But I mean, Claire Foy too
Oh my
was
God.
just ferocious in her role.
Yeah.
Just that scene where she's like, he's my child. He's coming with me. That was like devastating.
And when she was holding on, as you said, to the 4-year-old because she had but it was also Jessie Buckley did so much. I feel like the reason the story worked and why it was because of that constantly shifting balance that was going on, that it was like a real just that you'd be presented with one idea and then someone was there with the other, and that I mean, I know what you said, Sarah Polley, saying you change your mind, but it needed that tension of the going back and forth to see all the sides. And I mean, not everyone gets to have the incredible, Ona character. I mean, that was she was like some kind of angel.
Yeah, she gets to be quite magical in her sort of like just always having kind of a smart answer or a right answer or another perspective or another way to gently push back. But like when we get the scene where Jessie Buckley confronts them all and is like, how could any of you ask me why I stayed? And then her mother apologizes. Oh my God, that devastated me. Devastated me. Like because that so often, I mean, not always, but I mean, there can be like such long, messy histories of going from an abused home to an abusive marriage, and then seeing it then start to play out in your kids, and it either like, I mean, it can sometimes be the catalyst to take a really even bigger risk, but we know how dangerous it is for like women to leave abusive men. And like this movie gives us so many different ways in which, violence against women is not only perpetuated in this community, but tolerated and almost praised as like an act of, something close to divinity. Like it's the sanctity of marriage is so important. And it's, I don't know.
But that was an interesting scene too, that the Ona, am I saying her name right? Or was it Una? Ona?
I think it was Ona.
Ona. When she explains to August that I can't marry you. If I was to become a wife, I would lose all of who I am. And for him to have to understand that, and for her, I thought that was really powerful as well.
We should talk about the Sarah Polley's career also. I think I'll touch on that a little bit because she has just become like, I mean, we've basically all grown up knowing Sarah Polley as, first as a child actor, then transitioning into adult roles,
then becoming such a
like
director and a screenwriter,
writer-director. Yeah.
and writer of memoir, and
and she had a successful book that came out last year. But I've seen the movies that she's made as a director, and they're just incredible. Like, have you seen Away from Her?
No.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful film. And Stories We Tell.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible documentary about her family that she made. I highly recommend that if you haven't seen it either. Like, she's just a brilliant filmmaker.
Yeah, this really, she really seems to have found her step with this. I mean, I can't, it's very infrequent when I go to a movie and I can't think of, I come out and I'm just stunned because it was perfect. I mean, that's how I felt.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I like seeing Sarah Polley in front of the camera as well. I think I'm a Road to Avonlea stan for like all time. I watch that all the time. One of the greatest thrills of my first ever trip to Toronto was seeing Sarah Polley in a, oh my God, what's that store it's on Robson Street, but there was one on Queen Street West. Anyway, you could get cool stuff there sometimes. Urban Outfitters. Oh my God, yeah. Sarah Polley was ahead of me in an Urban Outfitters, and it was the most exciting moment of my life. And so, but I'm so thrilled for her that like she has found this like place as a writer and a director, and is able to, I don't know, just express herself in so many different creative mediums. Like that it gives me so much delight.
I just think that if you look at her like filmography and her career, and it's just like she's been a part of the Canadian pop culture. Like she's been so huge in Canadian pop culture forever. Like just looking through her list of movies, I mean, like This Sweet Hereafter. I remember that being such a huge movie. And like the movies she did in the 90s, like Last Night and Go and Existence and My Life Without Me. And it was, like, she seemed to stop doing movies in 2010, but like just looking at that list, it's just like a walk back through your own history growing up in your 20s and 30s, like seeing Sarah Polley movies. And it's just like, it's incredible that she's developed now into this writer-director who's like guiding us through the middle age of our lives.
Yeah, there you go.
With her incredible work,
Well, that's a bleak sentence. Through the middle age of our... No, I like it. It's good. I like middle age.
I thought it was quite poetic. Yeah.
No, I like it. I mean, bleak and poetic.
We should all hope for the same evolution.
Oh, for sure. I think bleak and poetic are a nice handshake. Don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that's... Yeah, I think that's lovely. Is it selfish to want to see her on screen again? Like, I really love her so much. On screen, and I wish she maybe like would do that thing that sometimes directors do, where they direct themselves in like a really cool project. But I don't know. I somehow think that she's like just more generous than that.
Yeah, I mean, you find that a lot of actresses, are kind of turn to producing and directing because they, it's hard for them to find roles.
Yeah, they want to make like their own project or whatever.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they don't get hired. But I mean, I just feel like she's just like, no, I'm good on this side.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, it's so lucky and to get to see someone who has felt that draw toward art find the projects that they want to tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because this is the first movie she's directed in 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, she's very choosy about what she works on.
Yeah, and I can imagine that after having made this film, it's rather life-changing. I think that the next movie you do, you would feel a certain draw toward a kind of subject that people are expecting from you now. I mean, she's, really put her stamp on this kind of storytelling.
And I do think, like, I mean, if there's going to be someone who does an amazing job turning, like, women's fiction into, like, Canadian women writers' fiction into amazing Canadian films that, tell incredible stories about women, I'm really glad that she's doing it. I'd love to see more of it because, like, Away From Her was adapted from an Alice Munro, right? Like, from
She
what
does
I
keep
remember.
it very Canadian.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. No, Stories We Tell. Sorry. No, not Stories We Tell. Oh, Take This Waltz. That's adapted from an Alice Munro, I believe.
That's the only one I haven't seen.
Oh, I saw it. It was good because it was the first time I saw like Seth Rogen be kind of like,
With
leading manish.
Michelle Williams?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I'd like to see like is just more movies like this that feel like they are already almost ready for the stage. Like this movie to me feels like it could be a stage play with like mild changes. It doesn't feel overly stagey. It doesn't feel overly like mannered. It just feels like it's the perfect sort of like, because the dialogue's so strong.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that actually, because we were discussing this with regards to Leo Grande last week.
Yeah.
Leo Grande.
That could have been a play. Yeah.
Yeah, but for some reason, like this feels so much more dynamic than that, and I think it's because like the dialogue is about conversation and people changing their minds and like engaging with each other and stuff like that. And I think that like Leo Grande felt so much more like statement.
Yeah, they're not really like they're not changing with each other. They're like shouting lines at each other. And that's exactly, that can work, but like not if you actually want people to be like come out the other side different.
Yeah. So I thought that was like an interesting that we kind of watched these two stagey movies back to back, and to me they just felt like different, even though they were both
they're very different. Yeah.
They even though like they both happen in sort of like one setting, and they're just like kind of both about really long conversations like for the entire movie.
Yeah, but like this one never felt like it dragged at any point.
No,
you know what I mean?
didn't.
Like there's just like there's so much at risk. There's so much actual like personal investment in all of these characters, and when they're telling us stuff about themselves, like we feel it. We're not just listening to someone who's had like maybe like a relative life of privilege that's been unfulfilling. And they just chose not to, like, the word, like, this is, I mean, again, it's not fair to like compare them on that level, but like in terms of sort of compelling dialogue, like you want to be able to see someone doing the work, and all of the actors in Women Talking, you can see their characters doing the work. And in Leo Grande, I don't think you can see Emma Thompson's character doing the work.
That's a fair assessment.
I was going to also say, like, we were talking a bit ago about like how Sarah Polley changed the narrator from being the male character August to being one of the children in the movie.
Yeah.
And I kind of appreciated that in a way at the end where like they show the baby and she says something about how her life is going to be different.
Yeah.
Or have a different story.
Yeah.
And that to me just, kind of let it rest. And like as an audience, like we knew that they had made it to somewhere and that, that baby's life was going to be different. And ending on that kind of, optimistic note to me made like this movie just like, even though this movie was so devastating, just like that little touch at the end just made me able to sort of walk out of that movie not completely devastated.
Yes.
Well, I think this movie really, at least in terms of outcome and in terms of like how people can arrive at a collective decision doing the best thing for each other, like there is an aspect of this that's like absolutely feminist fantasy. And because like, obviously, again, not everything that leads up to what has to force them into this situation, but how they deal with it together. Like watching them all, I mean, it's devastating, it's sad, but there's so much hope in watching them choose each other and commit to each other and like also still find a way to relate that back to their commitment to their faith, I thought was very powerful. Is like, you know, they are sort of, they're in it for each other, and they're in it for the future of their children, and they know that they owe that to each other. Like that's like the ultimate in having faith in something, you know?
That's a beautiful thing to say. Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh.
Yeah. This movie really got me, guys.
Oh yeah.
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 You're not alone. You're not alone.
I think I know what everyone's going to say, but we've come to the end of the show, so let's talk about whether we all think this movie pops.
Oh, huge. Yeah. I hope everyone gets a chance to see it. I was quite pleased. I went on a Saturday matinee, and there were quite a few people there too.
Yeah.
I
would highly
really hope
encourage
people
everyone to go.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
We also love to leave our
Ooh, what a
episodes.
big pivot.
You know what? I'm gonna go first then, because I want the wildest pivot possible right away, and then hopefully it gets softer for you guys. I'm gonna recommend it's a book. I listened to the audiobook because I really love it when authors read their own books. It's one of my favorite things. And this one had been talked about for a long time. I finally dug into it.
Is this Prince Harry?
Can you imagine? I just started reading it last week, and then I finished it on Friday. I like read the whole other half of it just after seeing this film, which was a wild double bill of emotional trauma. And stayed up really late Friday night finishing it. I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Holy crap, you guys. I mean, I did not watch iCarly. I did not watch, I'm just a little bit too old to have been part of that Nickelodeon Kids genre of television. But Jeanette McCurdy has some incredible stories to tell. They are hard stories to tell. And she is a wickedly brilliant, writer about how to communicate those stories. This is not an easy book to listen to. If you have stuff around, God, almost anything, but, abusive mothers, if you have stuff around eating disorders, if you have stuff around obsessive compulsive disorders and mental health issues and anxiety, this is a hard book. I'm not going to lie. If you do not like anti-fatness, also a hard book, all of this stuff. But it is an extremely, I think, important book and very funny and very sad and harrowing all at the same time.
All right. That's a fine recommendation.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that.
It is a zippy as hell read, too, I got to say. It's 6.5 hours, but she does not waste time. If you're like, oh man, I really hate books with long chapters, don't worry. There's 100 chapters and each one is 4 minutes long, so it's perfect.
Great.
Yep. Yep.
Well, I can go next.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
I'm going to recommend Pamela, A Love Story.
Oh, I really want to
Pam
see
Anderson
it.
doc that's on Netflix. It's man, you will kind of fall in love with Pamela Anderson after you watch this because it's such a tender, heartfelt documentary. She's kept diaries her whole entire life, and so a lot of it is kind of based on her writings, and she talks about some really painful trauma she's had in the past, and it's kind of she suffered a lot of sexism and misogyny predictably through her career, and she talks about how awful it was for the Pam and Tommy TV series to come out. Yeah, but it's she's very smart and funny and charismatic, and it's definitely worth watching.
Cool. I see that
All
as a future Pop This episode, possibly.
Yes. And
Yeah, for sure.
I'm taking another wild pivot, and I'm going to suggest the show Girls Five Ever.
Yay! I want to do that at some point.
Yeah, that just got onto Netflix. So it had been on
Yes.
Peacock, and I didn't know anyone who had watched it. I knew I wanted to see it, and finally binged 4 episodes just the other night. Have you already seen it?
No, I haven't. I was
Oh
waiting.
my gosh, I had a good time. Oh my
Yay.
gosh, I had a good. So I think most people, or if you don't know, it's about a girl group that try to come back together after they have a little bit of success years after they've broken up, and it is so funny. Like if you were looking for a ratio of like the 22-minute episode to laughter, you get a lot of laughs. So
Yay.
highly recommended. Girls Fight Ever just made its way onto Netflix.
And I think it's been rescued by
Awesome.
Netflix too, right? Like they're going to have a 3rd season after it got dumped by Peacock.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So there we go. That's some good entertainment for everyone there.
3 outstanding recommendations, friends. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for hanging out with us on Instagram, Paperback, Facebook, and Twitter. I don't know. Maybe I ultimately had a tiny cerebral hemorrhage during this recording. We'll find out. You could rate and review us 5 stars.
And thanks to Andrea Gin, our co-host and producer, and thanks to all of you, and thanks to Theater Popcorn, who I'm going to give another try to.
Good luck to you, Lisa Christiansen.
Thank you. That'll be the name of my memoir right there. That's it.
Thanks everyone.
A love affair with popcorn.
Thank you.